Good morning, West Coast. Good afternoon, East Coast. This is Ali Tarafdar, your guide and mentor, and welcome to Finance Talk on this beautiful day of Saturday on March 24th of 2018. Today, I'd like to go over what we do here at Best Credit Resources. Of course, we're going to go over our credit restoration program, a complete overview, the exact behind the scenes of what we do, as well as a couple of other elements that'll help you get some clarity in terms of who we are as a company, what our mission is, and why it's important that you listen to us, why it's important that you follow us. Now, you're on this channel, you've probably been invited, or you fell across this video by browsing YouTube for some sort of credit restoration advice or subject. And if so, the first thing I'd love to tell you is that I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to this channel, turn the notification on so that every time there is a brand new video, you'll be one of the first few to be notified. Now we move on exactly to the exact process that Best Credit Resources employs when it comes to credit repair for your knowledge and for you to gain advantage of. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this presentation. Oh, let's talk about the truth. Okay, let's talk about the truth today, right? So there is, honestly, there is a lot of videos out there on YouTube. We know this. There's a lot of people out there claiming to be credit experts, and that's great. And some of them actually came across by fluke on some of these opportunities, right? So let's say they sent out this thing called the 609 credit repair. The 609 letter is basically a verbiage from the United States Code 15, Section 1681, the same as a FCRA Section 609. It means disclosure to consumers that they have the right to dispute if an account is not valid or inaccurate, and then they have to disclose all that information to a customer. Now, on my latest post on my Facebook group of Best Credit Resources, my business page, I mentioned something, and I took a verbiage and a snapshot from a legal firm, a law firm that I work closely with, and it states that, the Section 609, it's not something that the creditors and the credit bureaus have to comply by, right? They don't ordinarily need to ask for documentation. So it's the complete opposite. So the people have a notion that you need documentation. You absolutely don't need documentation. Section 609, there's so many different elements to it. And a lot of people get, so caught up that, okay, if I send this letter, if I send the Section 609, my credit's going to be restored. It's going to be AAA. Everything's going to be great. And all the items are going to come off. The reality and the truth is it's not. Okay, a lot of people will attempt. They will create videos on this whole concept and methodology. And, there's so many different ups and downs that can happen from this one letter. And now the obvious truth is, right, like you have access to the internet. If you write Section 609 template or whatever, you can get that, right? You can get a free copy. It's very easy to understand. It's nothing extraordinary, right? The verbiage is the simple truth of what the creditors and credit reporting agencies are allowed to do. So as much as you have access to this internet and all these type of things, right? These guys are by the day, getting thousands and thousands of letters with the same template. Okay. And the truth is it's not effective anymore. In fact, it never was. By fluke, they would remove the items and all that. It depends on the eOscar system. So every time you send in a letter, it's never read by a human being, right? It's scanned by a system because it is a dispute. And the address they gave you to send those letters is a dispute address. So that dispute address has a process and procedure and protocol in terms of every letter that's being sent. It's automatically scanned through the eOscar system. Now, there's no way around that. So a machine does scan it. Now, people say, I'll handwrite it and all that stuff. End result is even if you handwrite it, somebody on the other side will verify that. And then basically, they have a independent form that they submit that automatically goes through the eOscar system. So the truth is it doesn't really affect anything. So, a lot of people say write your Section 609 by hand and just send it over. Still the same thing, right? It still gets, like, even if somebody has to read it, they basically resubmit it through an automated dispute system through the eOscar, and it's as though you basically typed it up. So it doesn't make a huge difference. So this is the truth. The truth is, a lot of people think, okay, I'll just get a Section 609 and submit it, and I'll get great results. And they get items back, verified them, they get disappointed, and they stop. They stop the whole process of credit repair, and they think this is the end. It's not, okay? I want you to take away something today. If you're here, I want you to take away something that I'm going to share with you, and I want you to hold it close to your heart, because I believe that this is the difference between success and failure when it comes to credit repair. So a lot of people dispute. Okay. When you dispute, you automatically have what we call the credit reporting agencies can deny and they can verify, and they can just do it electronically, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the problem is why most people fail. It's because when they actually, go to a certain step, and let's say it's 6 months in, and they're still disputing, and then they think they have all the paper trail, and they think they have everything right, and they have the Section 609 and all that broken down, and then they go to an attorney, and the attorney is there to get paid. Don't get me wrong. Yes, he can be on your side, but whatever that is, he's to get there to get paid. What the credit bureaus have established with the court system is when you go on that stand and when you go and sue some credit reporting agency, the first thing a judge will ask you, or the prosecutor on the other side, the attorney will ask you, are you disputing the factual account? Are you disputing that this account does not exist, that it's not yours? And if you say, well, I don't know, then the judge and all these people are gonna say, like, you don't know if you spent money on this restaurant, you don't know if you did all this, and then all these kind of things. So even if it's Section 609 and then they need signed documents and all that, nowhere in law does it say you need signed documents. A lot of people think that because it's the furnisher's responsibility. Signed documentation is, let's say, somebody putting information on your report. They're the ones who have to have all that. And sometimes electronic signatures is equatable to a signed document. So, when you apply for credit card and all these type of things, this all is equal to a signed contract because it states clearly on the verbiage when you're actually applying that this constitutes a contract. So it doesn't matter. Okay. So if you lie, if you go through perjury, and if you ever have to sue the credit reporting agencies and you say Section 609 and all that stuff, and I'm disputing the status of this account or the inaccuracy and all that, the first thing they will say is, well, first of all, you're suing us. That's great. And it's just a couple of months ago, and there are certain things that actually a major change happened in the court system that a lot of people will tell you, and that system is the fact that a lot of people are going to these litigation and they're successful sometimes, right? But the court stopped paying monetary damages. Like they will say, well, was there any injury that happened to you? Can you demonstrate that? And it actually has to be some very injurious event, right? Like you missing a claim from an accident or something like that because of your credit. You have to demonstrate that it's hurting your ability, that you're out of income and all these type of things. So this whole Section 609 journey, I just want you to be careful with that. I just want you to understand that, there are consequences for doing it that way. So that's the first thing, right? Like the truth is you don't dispute anymore. You have to challenge. So that's the difference. Okay. Dispute versus challenge. And when you're challenging, it's a whole different scenario. Okay. When you're challenging with the credit reporting agencies, you're setting up different structures and you're actually disputing the validity of how it is reported. You're challenging how compliant they are. Are they following the FCR? Are they following the regulations? So we can go deep into that. It's a whole topic for another subject, and I will promise you I will cover that throughout the week. But one of the biggest things with our company, with Best Credit Resources, you have to set the grounds for expectations. We do that, you do that. And the way we do this and the way we set our grounds for expectations is we tell our clients, look, when you come and do business with us, okay, when you engage with us to do your credit repair, the biggest thing you need to realize, okay, is that there are times that you're going to have things come back verified. There are times that you're going to have items still stay in your report. Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it stops. Okay, it doesn't stop. So one of the biggest things I'd like to say is, there are things that we call personal identifiers in your credit report. The biggest thing you need to understand is everything has a string attached to it. So if you applied with a credit card and you used a certain ID, sometimes you spell out your full name, sometimes, you miss out the middle initial and all these type of things. The credit reporting agencies, they record that information. It's actually displayed on your personal information, which is called the personal identifiers. Now, when you do that, when we start the dispute with Best Credit Resources, the first thing we have to do is we have to look at that information and see what kind of strings we have to cut. Because if we don't do that, then everything else after that is going to be hard to work with. When we're challenging the validity, when we're challenging the accuracy and all these type of things and our structure, if the strings are not there, it's kind of hard to verify. So that helps us in the procedures and protocols, right? So a lot of clients will say, well, my accounts are still there. Yes, but is your personal information adjusted? Yes, okay. And then from that point, we move on to step 2, step 3, step 4. It can take up to 7 to 8 steps, even sometimes 12 steps. But the goal is it's credit cleanup, right? It's to restore it. It's not to get those negative items and Sometimes they come back because, again, it wasn't done properly, it wasn't challenged appropriately. Some dispute, but once in a while they come back. And then you go back to square one, and that's going to be frustration after frustration, and you're not going to get the outcome that you want. So, the first thing we always want to say, and we want to set the grounds for expectations, is when you start with us or any other company, the biggest thing you want to tackle is personal identifiers because that is the key and the foundation to everything else after that. When we come to challenging your report, to working out with separate accounts, to collection agencies, to even charge offs. So that's the first thing you want to expect. Now, this is how we do our work, right? So, like I said, we have several steps we take. The first thing we do is we look at personal identifiers. We look at whether or not that information that you have on your personal is accurate. Sometimes, like I said, you put your full name. Sometimes you put a middle initial. Sometimes your full middle name. It's just a perspective of looking at that information and saying, what are you using right now? And all these type of addresses, right? Like you have so many different addresses, and this kind of causes a huge issue because it mixes up a lot of files, and there are items that may be mixed and matched with other individuals with similar names and all these things. Albeit that your goal is not to really figure that out, because if you actually tackle the identifiers from the beginning, if you do it the right way, you actually land yourself in a better position to dispute the process and go through the challenging process, accordingly. So that's the first thing we do, and then the second step is, once the identifiers out, we look at all the other derogatory items, whether it be inquiries, although they don't really affect your credit. It's just, it looks bad. And then there's all sorts of other things like, late payments. We got to look at that. We got to look at, charge offs. You got to look at, closed debt that's showing late payments or bankruptcies and all these type of things. So these are factors to consider. And that's our process. It does take some time. Sometimes it takes 3 months. Sometimes it can take 4, even sometimes 6. But the goal is, okay, we work at it. We work at it on a progressive manner. So a lot of credit repair companies, what they will do is they will take your information and they'll continue hitting it with a 609. And it becomes a frivolous dispute because at the end of the day, the credit reporting agencies know, even if you were to pursue them in court, they got you, right? They can trap you. So this whole disputing route doesn't work properly. Okay. There's so much loopholes. And like I said, they don't have to verify the documentation. It's at their discretion. They can go based on the electronic reporting from the furnisher, okay, with the ACDV. So that's a form that they use to submit to the furnisher who is putting the information on your report, and then they send it back with an AUD, which is a automated universal data form, right? So all this information can be a verification process. And now on that side, we work with the compliance to make sure that those forms are actually legitly, the intake or the information that's put in, digit by digit, letter by letter, is compliant. And that's what we do. We look at all these separate angles in which we can actually go ahead and challenge that and then remove the items from that perspective. And that's a little bit difficult because a lot of people will not tell you this because they're so used to getting free information and making a business out of it and anything you can find. And then it's just not really helping you with your journey in credit repair. And I think that's a problem, right? So if you're going to start listening to these people, you got to be careful with your personal credit because there's a chance that you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. Us, it's a whole different story. We pay, myself including, I pay thousands of dollars to show up in conferences and compliance conferences because Best Credit Resources is my credit business, but I have an investment banking business that utilizes investors' money with a combination of credit to get, multi-unit financing to a couple of other deals that requires insurance backing and all these things, and we all go through the credit system. And one of the biggest factors of that, and on a high level, dealing with credit and transactions, is that you always have to be compliant and you always have to follow regulations. And credit reporting agencies are not different from what we do. So we show up at these conventions and conferences and we learn this system, and we know for a fact that they are the ones that affect the overall result and outcome of an individual's credit file. So we know that this is the way we have to work. This is how we have to do our work. And that's different than regular disputing, which causes a whole lot of loopholes and challenges and back and forth and an infinite amount of frustration from you as the customer. So we know that your time is valuable. We know that you actually want outcomes that will be superior. And that is why we're in this business. That is why Best Credit Resources was established, not just to give you better credit, but to give you the education that you need to stay confident when it comes to making financial choices and decisions, and giving you the right guidance in terms of being careful as a consumer as to which service providers you choose, because end result is that also is a very sensitive area, right? A lot of people and individuals who are, soon to be customers of all these type of people who are on YouTube and saying all these nonsense, and teaching you these systems that is, full with loopholes and frustrations is it's just not worth your time and effort, right? Like you need to understand that there's so many different factors behind the scenes in a business sense, as well as a compliance sense that actually needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to your sensitive credit profile. So with that knowledge, just go ahead out there and look for the right information because that's what you'll need. Okay. So one thing you have to understand with Best Credit Resources is we as a business, we're looking for long-term results. With you as a customer, if we don't think about that, if we don't think about the long-term results for you and we think of short-term, then 609 is pretty much like, the route because and it's temporary and it's like not perfect, right? So us, it's we think of long-term solutions. So when we do these challenges, we look at the validity, we look at the compliance standards, we look at all these type of things because the legal system is what we're looking at, right? Why is credit repairs? Because you have a legal system that allows you to do it. Now, to restore it the proper way, you need to understand that the legal system has many, many different infrastructures within it. And these infrastructures is what you need to focus on, not a verbiage, not a section 609. It's the infrastructure and challenging that to making sure that they're compliant and basically following the regulations as they need. And this is the breakdown. So that gives you long-term results because that actually causes injunction, which is repeatability from repeating a mistake, for example, with a derogatory item to even let's say mandatory compliance, which is follow these rules or you're going to have some severe punitive damages and licensing issues and you're going to pay heavy fines for violating these rules and laws. So all that said and done, we always aim for these results for the long term here at Best Credit Resources. Now we're going to give you the breakdown of the process so you can actually see exactly behind the scenes and how we do this. And if you want, you can actually take a snapshot, record this, this whole thing there, or basically write it down as I'm explaining it to you. And of course, you have access to this recording as usual. But here we go. So the first thing we do is we analyze all your 3 reports, right? Sometimes you go through credit check total, sometimes directly with the bureaus. You can do that. But we analyze because we need to see all the information that's there. We need to make sure that we have a thorough breakdown of exactly your personal identifiers, derogatory public records, among many other things. And then what we do is like I said, we cut your strings from any misinformation or inaccuracies and things that can actually cause harm. And that's tackle personal identifiers. That's very critical. So we have to do that. And then we go ahead and handle the derogatory items. That's the third step. So a lot of people will say, well, within the first 30 to 45 days, what are you doing? Well, that's the first thing we're doing. We're analyzing, we're tackling your identifiers. And that's the first thing. Now, once that's taken care of, and by the way, if you remove some personal IDs and information from your report, whether it be the jobs or the addresses or your personal names, some people have seen results of 77 points, jumped on their score. And they'll say, well, that's not possible. It is. It is actually. So when you take care of that, what happens now is, your score jumps up a little bit, but then you're continuing on with the process of restoration. And now we handle the derogatory, which is the negative items, right? We also do some corresponding and we challenge it. So let's say if they say certain things, we look at that, we look at the information, we look at the report again. Hopefully they will give you an updated report with every round, which they have to by law. And we take that information and we challenge every single, compliance components to account reporting component to the different laws that allow us to make sure that they are following the rules and are bound by the laws that are actually established for that. And then we do a final check. So a lot of negative items will come off. We do a final check for compliance and the mandatory legal obligations, like we explained. From that perspective, now we can start building new credit history. We help you with that. We help you establish that. We break it down for you and where to go, how to apply. And sometimes you'll need to borrow credit history because you don't have sufficient history. And then you can add trade lines, which are authorized users, not primaries. We discussed that in another video. And why I say it's complete bogus. Don't try that. It's going to harm you. I'm talking authorized users. And then from that perspective, we take you to funding. Now, whether you're looking for a mortgage, car financing, to even borrowing for personal reasons, doesn't matter. That's the final stage. Now, all this timeline and the process can take anywhere between 4 to 6 months to even 7 months. But this is the goal. If you look at this whole breakdown, this is the process of credit repair. You can try it yourself, and I invite you to if you want. It's a lengthy process. You just have to know everything that we're doing here, or you go with us, and we help you do all this on a month-to-month basis. Well, it's hands-free for you, but correspondence is mandatory because we have to work together. It always takes 2 hands to clap, like I would say, right? So we get 2 options, right? We have competitive pricing. So option B is the higher end, which if you have up to negative 30 30 negative items. The setup is 300, and then we continue at 180 a month. One thing to note is that it's a month-to-month structure, so you can cancel at any time. But I insist that you think of at least a 3-month consecutive work so that you can see some decent results. Now, the first month, you can see some personal identifiers come off. Second month, we start looking at the negatives and derogatories. But this is the process. Now, if you cancel after 2 months, then you're like, okay, well, I don't see anything here, and I'm going to go with somebody else. Just be very careful with that, okay? But we will tell you upfront that this is the structure. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5, 6 months, but you get the results you want with us, and that's what matters at the end of the day. We also have option A, which is up to 50 negative items. Setup fee is 200, typical, and then you have 150 a month. Again, this program is a month to month, cancel at any time, but the results are going to be substantial compared to the other people out there. So that's one thing to keep in mind with our business, right? The model is very simple. If you have up to 30 negative items, the setup is 300 and it's 180 a month. Now, the first month is included with your setup. Just a heads up, right? It's not an additional fee that you have to pay the first month. It's already included. So from that perspective, we continue. We follow the process and we break it down to you like I showed you here, exactly from 1 to 8. Sometimes there are additions. Sometimes we have to deal with collection agencies directly and your creditors. But that's all part of the process. This is how we do our work. So with that said, that is their competitive pricing model. Now, you're going to see a lot of credit repair agencies or companies out there that are offering this pricing, and they'll sometimes be cheaper. But here's the thing. They're going with the route of dispute. They're going with things that will ultimately lead you down to the path where you need an attorney and ultimately pay heavy costs. Instead of that, get the greater outcome by working with a procedure and process through compliance and through legalities that will give you a greater credit restoration program and drive you to raise your credit score higher so that you can get the funding that you need and, of course, a reasonable time frame. Okay. So with that said, I just wanted to leave you guys off with that. This was Best Credit Resources, the program overview. And as usual, if you have any questions for me, I invite you to put it below this video as a comment. I will look at them. I do read them. I do create content videos on a regular basis on the questions asked by my customers and potential audiences, as well as anybody who's watching these videos. And of course, I invite you once again to subscribe to the channel, turn the notification on. Every time there's a brand new video, you want to be staying up to date because that is what we do here. We provide up-to-date resources, probably much the best in the industry when it comes to credit and finances, and hopefully personal financial planning as well. So this is Ali Taraftar, your guide and mentor. I appreciate you being here on this Saturday morning. I know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate that you're giving your time for this. And once again, please leave your comment or feedback below. I look forward to hearing from you again, and I'll see you next Saturday. This is Ali Taraftar, once again, your guide and mentor from bestcreditresources.com. Bye for now.